Well, Leslie Hurst worked as a community visiting nurse with a love for seniors for more than 2 decades before she decided to get her real estate license. She found herself using both roles in a unique way, providing sound advice for members of the aging generation and their loved ones. 2 years ago, Leslie started the Age Wise group, a support system to bring direction, depth, and a holistic approach. The goal? To keep seniors and their care at home whenever possible. For more, Leslie joins me in studio this morning. Leslie, it's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is a real passion for you. You light up when you start talking about it. Tell me about Age Wise and how it came about.
Well, I started my career in communities across Ontario, looking for the flexibility within the nursing profession, and really fell in love with the ability to provide care to one family at a time, and recognized sort of the lack of comprehensive services. Things are very disjointed once people get home from hospital. So I decided that, they just needed a more comprehensive approach to not just the people, but their property as well, so to put the supports around them so that they could feel more comfortable about being discharged from hospital and home. And so that combination just seemed to work for me because it wasn't just one element of care that we were exploring, like one diagnosis at a time. It was more holistic to end of life, an approach that guides people to end of life.
Well, because it's so much more than just your end of life. It's so much more than your health. There are so many factors involved, including family and including where you live. We've had so many stories and interviews on our show about the Canadian healthcare system, about the shortage of PSWs, about seniors having to leave hospital and go into assisted living when that's not necessarily something that they're ready for or something that they're choosing. In your experience, what are seniors and their families most concerned about when it comes to end-of-life care?
Well, I find that most people come home and they're surprised and often disappointed about, like you said, the amount of care that's available to them. So people are coming home from hospital with more complex care needs and less support, unfortunately, in the community to fill those needs. And so more onus is falling on the families to figure it all out. And of course, they're stressed and scared and unwell, and it makes it difficult to make good decisions when all of those things are factored in.
So if you're listening to this interview today as a senior, how do you know when it's time to get extra support?
Well, I always like to use the analogy that you don't have to wait till you're drowning to ask for help. That as soon as you start to notice that things are becoming a challenge, or for an elderly loved one, you're noticing that, when you're around the house, things that maybe the home might be starting to become a bit of a burden. So it's not just about getting showered or getting, a treatment for an illness. It's about the everyday management of the home and the household. So that's important.
And those are red flags that the family can then look out for as well to know, okay, this might be time to bring up the subject of needing additional help.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk specifically about the kind of conversations that many of us may need to have or are having one day to sit down and talk about. There are 3 Ps. So what are these?
The first is really the people, because again, everybody's human resources look different. Some have large families, some have no family nearby. So we really want to think about the people that are supporting, but also the person themselves to be able to really promote independence. And then the second thing is the property. It's aging too. So if people have lived in that home for decades, there can sometimes be elements of the property that require some remediation or a small renovation to promote safety and make sure people are well looked after in the home. And then the third is really to just put up your hand for help and not wait until you're in a crisis situation to start these conversations. Start the conversation early and give it time, because it can be difficult to have those conversations with people.
Well, I think that's the big thing. It can be difficult, and I think it most often is difficult, not only as the person asking for help, but the person watching someone desperately need help. And I know that when you bring up those conversations, they don't always go well, right? They can be difficult to receive as well. So when we're bringing up those conversations, if someone we're talking to is a little more resistant, what do you recommend to families? What do you say?
Most often I recommend, obviously those people typically know one another by the time they're in a conversation like that. But sometimes it makes sense to make it almost about us as the caregiver. Like, I would feel a lot more peace of mind if we could start to get some plans in place. So I think sometimes they don't want to be a burden. They don't want to make it about them. But when you say that there's relief involved in getting some of this stuff underway, sometimes that can be a really great way of moving the conversation forward, because it's no longer about the senior, it's about the person who's going to care for them, who loves them, and they want to make sure that this is as easy as possible. So sometimes giving them permission to talk about it and being patient if there's a bit of pushback, but, making it about us as the caregiver instead of about the senior.
And coming from a place of love.
Absolutely.
Saying, I love you, I love our relationship, and I want to help you.
Yeah, making sure that people's, wishes are uncovered so that you can make decisions with confidence when that time comes, knowing a little bit more about the degree to which the person wants to be independent or how committed they are to remaining in their homes. Because, of course, we know the long-term care situation has got a lot of negative press, and those workers are doing the best they can. But I really believe that if we only had the people who belong in long-term care, we wouldn't have the shortage that we have. I think a lot of Canadians especially think long-term care is an eventuality. And so letting people know that there's lots we can do to support somebody to remain in their home until their last breath, if that's their wish.
Thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is all great advice, and I want to end on a positive note. I love that you want us to remember we are blessed to be aging, and that aging is good news. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.